Welcome to the Patreon NHL Ice Guys. It is a free skate edition of the show. It's open to everybody, free for all on this final day of the NHL regular season. We're glad you're with us. Welcome to all of our regular Patreon subscribers and members at patreon.com/Ice Guys. And welcome to all of you who are joining us as part of our free skate. Glad you've decided to lace them up and join us here on this Saturday as we take you through the utter minefield, in my opinion, that is the final day of the NHL regular season in terms of the betting card. You've got to be careful. You've got to analyze motivational elements. You've got to know who's in, who's out. Like I said, and I purposely did that. You got to play Dr. Fraser Crane, that great NBC sitcom from the 90s here. Try to get inside the heads of these players and these coaches here on a day where there's so much, different levels of interest, excitement, enthusiasm, and motivation for these games. So that's all part of the handicap on a day like this. We'll try to make sense of it for you here on this Saturday card to the best of our ability. Alex B. Smith joining me on this final day of the regular season. Alex, how are you today?
I'm doing good. It's so weird how the season starts in October and we're all excited, and then we go through this long 27-week process, but then for some reason at the very end of the regular season it just feels like it flew by. It's just always interesting. Every single year it always feels that way. But yeah, you got some, all the playoff spots are clinched, so that's something that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. Don't really have to talk about that now. It's just seeding and divisions that have to be shaken out and stuff. We might see some teams accidentally skate onto the ice with some golf clubs instead of hockey sticks today. That's something we gotta be aware of as well. So, some teams are getting ready for the summer, and some teams are getting ready for the second season. So, like I said, it's really hard to break that down, but we're gonna do it to the best of our ability. And I think there are a couple of spots on this board tonight. Some years there's a lot of spots worth betting in the final day. This year not so much, but there's enough to where we can definitely give you guys some good advice, steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, I have a couple plays. I have two or three for sure. There's a couple I'm tempted by, but not much more than that. Like I say, I like to keep it light on a day like today. We're going to start with the only other afternoon game taking place. There is one game that's already off the board. It is a completely play for exercise game. Boston leading Tampa Bay 2-0. Boston, Tampa Bay clinched into their spots where they are right now. Bruins up 2-0. Pasquale in net for the Tampa Bay Lightning today, giving Vasilevsky a rest. A lot of Bruins out, though. I mean, a lot of Bruins on their defense not playing. Bergeron and Marchand not playing up front, but still up on the Lightning. 2-0 there in the second period. Let's go to Vancouver, St. Louis. Like I say, that's the first game on tap. It's the only remaining afternoon game on the slate. We've got St. Louis minus 260, the total 5.5 shaded to the over here in this game for the St. Louis Blues. Still alive to win the Central Division. They're definitely going to need some help because they are, tied with Winnipeg, 1 point back in Nashville. They're going to have to worry about what those teams are doing tonight later on. But the fact that St. Louis plays this game, Alex, before Winnipeg and Nashville both take to the ice for their games tonight means you should get full-on motivation from St. Louis, a team that wants to go out there, get the 2 points. Vancouver, on the other hand, though, just asked Nashville the other night. Vancouver hasn't made games easy on anybody these days. The effort's been there for Travis Green's group. I applaud them. You know what? I think bringing up Quinn Hughes, putting him in the lineup for Vancouver, has really kept this team, focused and wanting to play well down the stretch. It's a little energy boost, adrenaline boost. You got one of your better prospects now playing for this Canuck team. I think that's helped them quite a bit down the stretch, keep them interested in playing out the string in these games. And again, they led Nashville majority of the game in Music City, but Nashville tied it late and then won it in the final minute, 3-2. So an escape for this Nashville team over this hard-trying Canucks group that, really hasn't mailed it in at all down the stretch in the regular season. So very interesting game to watch. St. Louis, I think, is going to be pushed today, but obviously not in a situation where I'm anxious to go against them. They're at home, need the 2 points. Binnington should be in net. Binnington was actually a little human the other night against Philadelphia, but a lot of run support, so to speak, for him in that game as they blew out the Flyers in their last game. Definitely, I think, because they're going to take to the ice St. Louis late afternoon before everybody else, knowing they can still win the division. The chance is there anyway. You get them trying to get this win and get the 2 points here. So it's going to be a pass overall. I'd lean slightly to the over in this game because Vancouver has really perked up offensively a little bit. St. Louis, should be able to find the back of the net. But Binnington at home always worries me about going over the total. That's the one issue. He's been great overall, but his numbers in St. Louis, they're even better. They're off the charts. So I lean to the over, but like I say, I'm not going to pepper the board today, so that'll just be a lean for me. Alex, you got anything of interest here with the Canucks and the Blues?
And a slight lean with Blues team total over 3.5. You can find it around minus $1.15, $1.20. And yeah, like I said, they're kind of in the same vein of St. Louis. Basically, all they can do is try to win this game and get their 2 points, and they got to wait for things to shake out tonight. But like I said, having the advantage of playing early and kind of in that way, that's as much as they can control their destiny. Just play well in this game here and see what happens. And like I said, we've seen them score in bunches. Vancouver has tightened things up a little bit defensively. We've only seen them give up maybe 3 goals or less in the last several games. So that's the reason why it's just a lean. But like I said, this you wonder maybe St. Louis comes out and just says, hey, we'll just kind of take whatever we can get and then, just skate around, do nothing. Or do they come out, guns blazing and maybe get some goals early? That, like I said, those are the hard things you got to try and figure out. Same thing with Vancouver. I don't see where Vancouver is going to have much of a, like I said, after playing Nashville tight, they might be a bit flat. Like I said, great effort by them coming off of that homestand. I talked about that, about how the flip side of being at home really long can also be like being on a long road trip. But they showed that they were energetic, but just a little flat. So here, Vancouver, I can see them just completely laying an egg possibly here. That 3.5 might be of good value with the Blues.
All right, so lean to the St. Louis team total going over for Alex B. Smith in Vancouver and St. Louis. Next up, we've got Columbus taking on Ottawa. Columbus minus 195, minus 200 road favorites here after clinching the final playoff spot in the East last night with their thrilling shootout win against the New York Rangers. The total 6.5 in this game. Very interested to see what Columbus has been. We haven't heard a damn thing about what they're going to do tonight in terms of their lineup. Not a thing. Obviously, they played last night, so it was more than likely that you weren't going to hear a whole lot this morning about what Columbus's plans are. For Columbus, I could see it going both ways with them. They could rest a bunch of guys, put Joonas Korpisalo in net back-to-back. He might start anyway, to be honest with you, in this game. Wouldn't surprise me. But it's all about, you got to try to get in the heads of some of these players and teams at this time of year. How badly does Columbus want to avoid Tampa Bay in the first round? That's really what this comes down to, because they can still, with 1 point or 2 points, and Carolina loses to Philadelphia, even though that's not likely, there's still the door open for them to leapfrog Carolina into that first wildcard spot, avoid Tampa Bay, play Washington instead in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So there's, it's all about, is that even something that matters a lot to the Columbus Blue Jackets, playing one team over another in the first round of the playoffs? Is that enough to stimulate motivation for them in this game tonight against the Ottawa Senators? I'm really not sure. I don't think Columbus would totally mind taking their chances with Tampa Bay. Remember, they played Washington last year, and if you remember, it didn't end well. They had a 2-0 series lead. Washington ends up winning 4 straight games and winning that series in 6. So half of you says, okay, maybe we don't want to play Washington. They got us last year. Maybe take our chance with Tampa Bay. But half of you says, what? Washington, let's want to revenge that series loss last year. Let's play the Capitals. But, so it's very, very up and down motivational analysis for me here. It's very, very difficult to get inside what Columbus is going to do here in this game. One thing is for sure, regardless of it all, I'm very, very much tantalized and tempted by Ottawa at this price. I really am. Plus 180, series finale, or regular season finale, I should say. Home finale for the Ottawa Senators, a team that's really tried hard, played hard in most nights, even with the young lineup that they've been putting out there on a nightly basis. You've had Brady Tkachuk, Tierney, Colin White, guys like that really step up, be good contributors. Thomas Chabot on the back end's been excellent for this team. This blue line, Cody Cece's played really well for Ottawa in recent games as well on the blue line. And you got Craig Anderson in net, who's also been pretty solid in most of his recent starts here for the Ottawa Senators. So I'm going to chew on this one a little bit between now and the end of the show, or between now and when I post the daily NHL Ice Guys betting card and picks on the Patreon page, but I am heavily leaning toward the Ottawa side. And if that's an official play before puck drop, it would not be a total surprise to me. I'm just waiting to get a glimpse of this Columbus lineup, which I think we'll know around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern. Usually if the team doesn't have a morning skate, there's a little bit of an address to the media about 2 hours before the game. That's probably when we'll start to find out what exactly Columbus is doing in terms of their lineup. Is anybody resting? Who's in net? That kind of thing. And I think that'll go a long way toward determining just how critical and how important and how much emphasis Columbus is placing on this game. But either way, I'm definitely leaning toward Ottawa at the home underdog price here in this one after Columbus clinched that playoff spot last night. Alex, you got any leans or opinions on Blue Jackets and Sens here?
It's funny. We were talking about, off air a couple of days ago in reference to teams, after they clinch a spot or wrapped up things. They said, 20 years ago, those guys would have, gone out and partied and got hung over, and then they still would have hopped on the ice, and that's the time to fade them. But nowadays, these guys are, they take things a little more seriously. Athletes that are in better condition and stuff, and so you see guys rested a lot, or guys, different things. How have you? The end of the season shakes out a little differently than it did back in the day. But with that being said, Columbus has played their ass off as of late, and they did clinch in Manhattan last night. So you think there might have been a few drinks, might have been a little partying going on, but now headed up to Ottawa for a meaningless game to wrap up the year. Like you said, you wonder if they want to just get some of the backups and some of those other guys a little bit more ice time before they rest and get ready for the playoffs. And like I said, lesser of two evils. I mean, yeah, you want to be stuck with the hottest team in hockey or the defending Stanley Cup champions for the first round. That's like I said, team that dispatched them pretty easily after them blowing a 2-0 series lead. We know how Columbus, their playoff history has pretty much just been losing. So it's not going to help out one way or the other. And I would think, like I said, if anything, they probably want to get the Capitals and avenge that series because they did play well in those first two games, and it was that was a great series. I would love to see a rematch of that personally. And I think this time around, as well as Washington's played, that might actually be another 6 or possible 7-game series. So, like I said, as a fan, I would like to see that one happen. But as far as this game goes, I'm not going to touch anything. Like I said, we won't even know until a couple hours before. And this is a day where, because of that, you want to stay close to your device, your laptop. Stay in the book all day, where however you're betting, because you got to be really focused. Because as soon as they make those announcements, those line moves are going to come quickly. Remember, we saw it. We were on air or the Calgary LA game a couple of days ago, where we literally saw the line go from LA plus 120, 125 all the way to virtually a pick 'em because Calgary announced all these guys being out in a row. So definitely keep focused on that, and if however you're wagering, be quick with lines, shop around, because that's a huge key today.
No doubt. You got to be definitely in tune and right away be able to figure out the information, disseminate it, and then bet it, because everybody else is going to be onto that same info. Calgary, LA, Calgary, Anaheim was like that too. When Calgary was resting guys again, Anaheim went immediately. Anaheim went down from like plus 150 to like plus 130, plus 125. Even last night, Chicago, Dallas. Chicago was a home underdog, and they end up minus 115, minus 120. By puck drop, once Dallas lets everybody know that Jamie Benn is not playing and Hudobin's in net. So already they're letting you know what's going on, that they're, just keeping a couple guys rested, and Chicago ends up winning last night. So that's just a couple of examples. It's all about getting the information quickly and beating the market to the punch, because you just know people are going to run with this and bet it as soon as they hear it. So this could be one of those games if we find out Columbus is not putting much stock or emphasis into it. But we don't know that yet for sure. And we don't know, again, we're guessing. We're trying to do our best psychiatrist hat on here, but we're trying to figure out just how much playing Tampa or playing Washington one over the other means to the Columbus Blue Jackets. But we don't know for certain. We're just hypothesizing on it. Next up, we've got Carolina, Philadelphia. Carolina minus 135, road favorites. The total 6 shaded to the over at minus 130. There is a 6.5 out there at Heritage Sports right now. The Carolina Hurricanes, it's very simple for them. They win, they clinch, at least they get the first wild card spot, finish ahead of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and obviously avoid the Tampa Bay Lightning in that first round series. They control their destiny in that regard. Carolina obviously clinched their playoff spot the other night. They beat New Jersey, and they got the help required from the Washington Capitals. Then when they beat Montreal that night, Thursday, that clinched it for Carolina. Philadelphia, to me, has not offered up any sort of resistance these last few games. They get shut out by the Rangers. They get bombed by Dallas. They get bombed by St. Louis in their last game. Carter Hart in net. But this is a team that looks like, to me, Alex, they've thrown in the towel. I mean, it's a team that's not really giving you a whole lot of pushback in the last few games. They've fallen behind, and it's gotten absolutely ugly for them these last 3 games since they were eliminated last Saturday by Carolina from the playoff mix. So Flyers, again, look like a beaten team at this point. But on the flip side, Carolina, am I in love with rushing to lay $150 or so with them on the road? No. So it's definitely a pass type of game for me here. Alex, how about you with Carolina, Philly?
I forgot to selfishly mention the fact that I need Columbus to just get 1 point or 0 to catch the under 97.5 point total. Point totals have not been did not fare well with those this season, unfortunately. But that said, like you said, Carolina 1 point ahead, and they could, with a point or 2, could clinch that first wild card spot here. This is a game I'm going to be staying away from as well. You look at Philadelphia; it's been all cheesesteaks and Bryce Harper for them the last couple of games, losing 7 of the last 10. Maybe there's a little bit, like I said, a little bit of momentum or motivation because Carolina was the one that officially knocked them out. Yeah, Carolina really doesn't have much to play for. Like I said, kind of the same thing. All right, we're in. It doesn't really matter who we draw. They're gonna be ready to play anybody, and they're gonna be a tough out in the playoffs too. They're gonna be a lot of fun. I don't know if did they say that they're gonna do the storm surge again for the playoffs, or are they done with that?
I think they're done with it for the season. I think it's all business in the playoffs. So you got to
okay, and that's cool. That's cool because it's like that would be embarrassing for them if they did that like the first home game they win, and then next thing they just get trounced in like a 5-game series. That would be they probably have to just get rid of that forever. So no reason to ruin that. Everybody loves that and roll with that. So just keep that during the season. But yeah, like I said, it'll be all business now. But this is still a regular season. Might not be as business like tonight. So it's a pass.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great move. You're right. You can't do that. You can't, like, let's say they're playing game 3 or something, and they're down 2-0 in the series to Washington or Tampa, whoever, and they win that game. You're still down 2-1 in the series, and you're going to do that crazy stuff.
I mean, I wish, because then that means I would be betting against them like hell in game 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Go piss off your opponent in game 3 of a playoff series and see what happens. So
yeah, exactly. No, they made the right move. That's a regular season thing. It's nice and fun.
Yeah.
It's a one game situation. You're just playing that team one night. You get the win. You move on. But yeah, playoff time. It's about serious business. Enough with the lollygagging and the shenanigans. You're right. Time to get back on track and focused. And Justin Williams is actually the guy that made that decision within the team, saying, you know what, it's been fun. We've enjoyed doing it. It's great. Fans respond to do it well. The Carolina fans. But yeah, that's going to be it. It's going to be a regular season only thing. The storm surge and the little celebrations after the game. All right, next up, we've got Detroit hosting the Buffalo Sabres. Detroit -115 to -120. The total 6 pretty much across the board. This is arguably, if not, my strongest betting opinion on the entire card here in this game. You look at the Buffalo Sabres, they've been probably, arguably, but I think they have been the worst team in the NHL since the All-Star break. I don't think there's much debate in that. They've been absolutely dreadful. We give them credit, though. They did say Jack Eichel, Connor Sheary, a couple other guys on that team that we really wanted to show well for ourselves on Thursday night in the home finale against the Ottawa Senators. They said, we've let down our city, we've let down our fan base, the organization. We deserve to give the fans a win on the way out here. And they did that. Give them credit. They humped up. They had a great effort, great comeback. They actually fell behind in that game again to Ottawa, but came back and won going away against the Ottawa Senators, albeit a very inexperienced young Joey Daccord in net for them, making his NHL debut. Buffalo took advantage of that, got a nice win against the Senators. That was their Stanley Cup game, I think, the Buffalo Sabres there. They got the win they wanted at home against Ottawa. Now you're going on the road. You still had a miserable run, even though you won the other night. Now, meaningless road finale here against the Detroit Red Wings at the end of a long, disappointing season. I think we get a Buffalo team that shows up in body only, not mind and spirit tonight. As far as I'm concerned, I don't trust them on the road to show up here. There's a couple teams that are on the road tonight. We'll get to, I think, at least one more later on that I don't trust to show up here in this finale. Buffalo's one of those teams. I don't trust them to show up here. They got the win they wanted to appease the home fans that have been on their case. But now you're going on the road, meaningless season finale against let's be honest, a red-hot Detroit team. I know they finally got cooled off the other night by the Pittsburgh Penguins, but that was desperate times for Pittsburgh. They wanted to get that playoff spot clinched, revenge spot. second half of that home and home against the Red Wings back in Pittsburgh, and the Penguins capitalized with their power play, and that was the difference, beating Detroit. But still, Detroit 6-1 their last 7 games. They've beaten some good teams. They beat Pittsburgh the first time. They beat Vegas. They beat San Jose. I mean, they've beaten some decent foes during this stretch. Detroit hasn't been all beating up on the weak. They've actually had some quality wins. We've seen great energy, enthusiasm, effort from the Red Wings down the stretch. Dylan Larkin, Athanasiou, guys like that have stepped up, played well for them, led the way. And I think there is some onus on them winning this home finale. Final game for the home fans at the Pizza Box there of Little Caesars Arena. It's a team that's played like they've played these last 7 games like, hey, we've got a lot at stake here, even though they've been out of the playoffs for a while. So I have a hard time believing Detroit mails in their home finale here tonight at the Little Caesars Arena. Jimmy Howard will be in net for the Red Wings, and it's confirmed that Linus Ullmark's in net for Buffalo. I can't even remember the last time that guy won a hockey game. He's been absolutely pitiful in net for the Sabres. Hutton's not been much better, but Ullmark's been worse. So I'll gladly wring my hands together at the potential that Ullmark's playing tonight, which he is. So yeah, I'm going to lay the $1.15, $1.20 here with the Detroit Red Wings. They've owned Buffalo as well. Remember, Detroit was in that terrible scheduling spot in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago, and they still managed to beat the Sabres. When the Sabres were talking before that game, like, hey, we got to get back on track, and Detroit still beat them. So Detroit has really owned this team. I don't think Buffalo really shows much at all here. A meaningless road game to end their dismal season, whereas Detroit's still giving you that effort, and I think wants to send the home fans happy tonight with one more win. And let's be honest, this is a cheap price to back the team in much better current form the last couple of weeks. So Detroit for me at about -120 here against Buffalo. Official play. Actually, my very first official play on this card. Alex B. Smith, Red Wings and Sabres.
It's interesting you mentioned about Linus Ullmark. When's the last time he won a game? He won March 1st against Pittsburgh. But before that, he won a game February 12th against the New York Islanders. The next game they played was February 15th against the New York Rangers. They lost that game. They have now gone on to lose 22 of the last 26 games. You mentioned, yes, they have absolutely, without question, been the worst team in hockey since the All-Star break, and even a little bit even before that. I'm rolling with Detroit here. You know, anybody who's been watching the show the last couple of weeks see me. I've been on Detroit during this whole streak, cashed some really big dog tickets. Like I said, won 8 of the last 10 games. I think I've been on them in about maybe 5 or 6 of those. Did drop the game, like I said, their last meeting against Pittsburgh. But like I said, home fans here, you've seen a lot of the giveaways and stuff. They're gonna, it's gonna be a packed crowd. They're gonna give the jerseys off their back and different things. And like I said, I think they're really building up momentum for next season. We've been talking about the Wings being in the bottom of the league and the Eastern Conference for quite some time now. That's not normal talk in Detroit. Detroit, give them credit. They've perennial powerhouse for a very long time and going through this rebuilding phase. I think now, this gives some momentum and gives some hype for the summertime. Maybe they can get some veteran free agents in there, some real quality veteran free agents, not guys like Thomas Vanek, and build some things up, and they can make some noise next season. So I think they're going to wrap this year up with a win and try to close out on what would be a 9-2 run at the end of the season.
All right, so Detroit as well for Alex B. Smith in this game against the Buffalo Sabres to close out their schedule with a home victory. Yeah, you're seeing that across the board. I mean, you saw it with Chicago, too, last night. I mean, that's a disappointing season for them, but they put the boots to Dallas last night. They still wanted to go out with a bang for the home fans. That's a very, it's been a fan base that supported that core of that team for a decade now, that they've been such a great team, and they just wanted to give them one last win, and Chicago played like it last night. I think you get something like that from Detroit here as well tonight in this game against the Buffalo Sabres, who again, and here's another team in terms of their road play, been absolutely awful overall, but especially on the road. Toronto, Montreal next up. Boy, this game's had a lot taken out of it, with Montreal, of course, officially being eliminated last night from the playoffs, but it's still Toronto, Montreal to finish the season. Original 6 rivalry. Leafs are clinched, are into third, locked into third in the Atlantic. Montreal's now out, and yeah, both teams are hinting at resting players, but still, it'll be a nice game to watch, if for no other reason. But we say goodbye to the tremendous voice that Bob Cole has been on Hockey Night in Canada for 50 years. Incredible career he had. It's his very final game of his legendary career. I believe he's 85 years old, so he's had a great run in the broadcast booth. for Hockey Night in Canada. He was the lead voice of CBC Hockey Night in Canada from 1978 till about 2008, 30 years. And then I think the last 10 years or so, Jim Hewson has been the lead voice of Hockey Night in Canada. But Bob has had a tremendous career. Oh, baby. Everybody knows that. His trademark phrase. We wish him well in his retirement, and I'm sure he'll have a phenomenal call, as always, his final game in the booth tonight for HNIC, Toronto-Montreal. Couldn't ask for a better game or rivalry than that to go out with. We've got Toronto minus 110 in this game. Even money pretty much on both sides. Total 6.5 for the most part across the board. Toronto is going to be like Calgary these last few games for the Flames, where they had 4 starting defensemen out. Well, the Leafs have exactly 4 starting defensemen out tonight. Nikita Zaitsev out, Ron Hainsey out, and a couple others as well out of this team in terms of their starting defensemen. So it's going to be, a lot of new faces in the lineup. Justin Hall, Ozhiganov, Marincin, guys like that are going to get in. Cali Rosen. So there's 4 starting defensemen out for the Leafs tonight in this game. Definitely Mike Babcock saying, hey, you know what, let's keep these guys fresh. They've had some nagging bumps and bruises as well. Muzzin's another one of the guys that's not playing tonight as well for this Leafs team on the defense. I think the forwards are still going to be, for the most part, full bore for the Toronto Maple Leafs side, and it's Frederik Andersen is going to be in net. They want to get him, not with some confidence, because it's not been his fault really, but the play in front of him has been bad, but they want to get him rolling going into that series on Thursday against Boston, and he's in net tonight. Whereas the Montreal Canadiens, I thought for sure, with them eliminated, here's Antti Niemi, right? No, Antti Niemi's been skipped. It's Charlie Lindgren, the third goalie on the Montreal depth chart, starting in net for them tonight. That tells you all you need to know about how much last night's Columbus win, which knocked them out, probably took the wind out of their sails quite a bit. Toronto's resting defenseman. That's not a bet-on situation. Montreal got knocked out of the playoffs with a third goalie on their depth chart now in the lineup for them. That's not a bet-on situation. So it's a pass all around for me in this game. Maybe you get a relaxed atmosphere and some goals because you got a defense that's obviously depleted due to absences for Toronto. And then you got Montreal with Lindgren in net. So you could see some goals here in this game, maybe a lean to the over, but not something I'm going to get involved with. Alex, anything for you with Toronto, Montreal?
You get that unmuted. Yeah, no, I don't really see much of anything. I would lean to the over. Like you said, a lot of defensemen being out for Toronto, and we know, like, if their forwards are playing, I mean, they can get 6 goals on their own. So looking at 6.5 with a plus price, don't know what to expect from Charlie Lindgren. I haven't even looked at his numbers in the AHL or East Coast League or wherever he's been hiding. So just a lean with the over there at 6.5.
All right, Alex leaning as well over the total in that game. Yeah, that one makes some sense. And Toronto and Montreal have actually, I think, played more overs than unders head-to-head. It's been trending that way in recent meetings. So the over definitely does make some sense there a little bit in that game. New York Islanders taking on Washington. We've got Washington minus 120, the total 5.5 pretty much across the board here in this game. We're looking at a situation where for Washington, it's also looking at them now that they've clinched the Metro Division, resting some guys. No Braden Holtby in net. It's going to be Phoenix Copley in net tonight for the Capitals. So that's definitely something you want to be aware of. Certainly a lot of scenarios for the New York Islanders too, in terms of where they could finish here in the Metropolitan Division. I would think there's a little more onus for the New York Islanders on this game than Washington, but it's still Washington's home finale, if and a chance maybe to go out with and go into the playoffs with this momentum. They played a really strong game against Montreal defensively. I was impressed with what the Capitals did, against a desperate Montreal team Thursday night. Played extremely well in that game. They've so far managed to cope without Michael Kempny. I think he was a big absence for them, him getting injured on that blue line the way he had played, but you got the rest of the blue line stepping up. They've got a lot more depth of scoring this year. We've talked about it ad nauseum, that it's not all falling on the shoulders of Kuznetsov and Backstrom and Ovechkin and Oshie this season. There's now these Vranas and Connollys and Wilsons and guys like that have been capable of scoring as well for this team. So they've got more depth. I still think the New York Islanders, they're a team I've got circled as a bet against team come playoff time for sure. I think they're a team that's going to be one and done. Great season. Barry Trotz has made tremendous strides forward with New York in his first season. Just the incredible turnaround from the worst defensive team in the NHL last season to first or second in the league in goals allowed this season. It's been incredible, the turnaround defensively, but they've had trouble scoring at times. Everybody plays tighter defensively a little bit at playoff time, even the teams that are only mediocre defensively. You got to have game breakers and a power play that you can rely on. That's the downfall for the New York Islanders. I don't know if I've seen a power play be as lousy as the New York Islanders power play has been for like the last month. The other night, they were 2 for 40 on the power play going into that game. 2 for their last 40, just dreadful. And hey, special teams is important in the playoffs, and we'll talk about this on Monday and Tuesday. Power play is going to have to come through. 5-on-5 scoring is not something you can count on and hang your hat on as much in the playoffs as you can in the regular season. Got to be able to get things done with the man advantage, and that's been a major problem and a major Achilles heel for the New York Islanders, and that's a grave concern of mine with this team going into the playoffs. As for tonight, pass for me in this game all around. Washington may not be fully, stocked in terms of their roster, and they've already confirmed Copley in net. New York Islanders, I'm not sure I trust them on the road to beat Washington, so it's a pass here all around. Alex, you got anything of interest here with the Islanders and Capitals?
The slight lean with the Islanders here as a road dog. I mean, this is the one spot where there's actually something still left to play for. They need at least 1 point to clinch that second seed officially, which means they would open up against Pittsburgh on home ice, games 1 and 2, and that would be at Nassau Coliseum. So that's huge. Like I said, yeah, I agree with you. I think Islanders is probably going to be a one and done team, but it makes a difference whether they start in Pittsburgh or start at home. And obviously, they're going to want to have to start at home. I think they start at home, that might be a 7-game series. If they have to start in Pittsburgh, that could be a 5 or 6-game series. So it makes a huge swing here. And I don't know if Trotz is always motivated to kind of stick it to Washington whenever he plays them, but I'm sure that's always something that at least you'll hear it mentioned pre-broadcast and stuff. But like I said, the biggest thing here is the only team that has something to at least remotely play for being the Islanders, and the fact that the Capitals are resting guys here. I would lean with them slightly, but it's definitely not worth playing on. Like I said, the biggest thing here is you want to find glaring spots today, and this is one where if it was like 2 weeks ago, even in the same situation of where it doesn't matter much to teams, I would look at playing the dog. But this is one where you just kind of just hold back, save that unit play for a couple of days from now during the playoffs.
Exactly. Yeah. This is one of those days you don't look to force anything. You don't go on what ifs and maybes. You try to go on things that are a little bit more concrete. And that's the way I see it with this game. I mean, Islanders, yeah, a little bit more at stake, but it's not like they might go balls to the wall. And it's not like totally Washington's going to be disinterested on not trying to win their final home game. Final home games matter more and more. I find in the last few years, these final home games matter to a lot of these teams. They don't want to lose those games on home ice, especially because most of them do the ceremony after the game where a jersey off the back, you give a jersey to the fans after, that kind of thing, sign some autographs. And, a lot of teams don't want to lose that game. Hell, the Buffalo Sabres won a game like that the other night. That tells you all you need to know. Teams get up for that final home game a lot of times. So, yeah, that's why for me, I know the Islanders maybe need the points a little bit more, but not necessarily in love with going against Washington on their final home game. New York Rangers, Pittsburgh. We've got Pittsburgh. Minus 295, minus 300. Just an absolutely massive price here. The total 6.5, I believe, in this game. Yeah, 6.5 across the board. New York Rangers didn't exactly play phenomenal last night, but Georgiev did. Gave them a chance. Made the Columbus Blue Jackets work for it. Made them sweat a little bit. But eventually Columbus won in a shootout, clinched that playoff spot against this New York Rangers team. I don't trust New York here at all. Not even maybe. Second night of back-to-back. That was their final home game. You're playing Pittsburgh on the road. There's no way I endorse the Rangers here. There's no way, no how. For Pittsburgh, it's very simple for them in terms of what they need to do. They clinch second in the Metropolitan Division if they beat the Rangers, and they need some help. They need the Islanders to lose to the Washington Capitals in regulation time. So Islanders can't even pick up a point. Pittsburgh's got to get 2. Islanders have to get zip in terms of points for Pittsburgh to overtake the Islanders for second in the Metropolitan Division, which is still somewhat important because you're talking about home ice advantage, obviously, in the first round series. So Pittsburgh's going to come to play, I would think. They got the home win the other night against Detroit. to clinch that playoff spot. Rangers aren't Detroit, not in terms of effort and the way they've been playing lately. So this is one of those games that's just impossible. You just say pass, and you don't even think twice about it. I can't back the Rangers. There's no value to be had on anything with Pittsburgh. Money line, reg line, puck line, it doesn't matter. Pass, 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 all around here for me. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, no, exactly. There's literally no value at all because I was looking at it, it's like, oh, team total, even that's minus 160, 165 for over 3.5 there. So obviously, except Pittsburgh, they got to win, but they need a little bit of help too from Washington to try to get that second spot. And if you watched the Ranger game last night, the Rangers tied that game up with 6 seconds left in regulation to send it into OT and then to lose in that shootout. And I watched. I had the game. I just hadn't changed the channel, but I watched the end. They showed the ceremony, talking to the guys. They're talking about how how they're looking forward to next season, how some of these younger guys really picked up and whatnot. But just the body language from the players just kind of seemed there. They looked deflated. They looked like, wow, like said, they wanted to win that last home game for the fans. And it just kind of had that feel like, this is the season's kind of wrapped up and done. So I would not be shocked if Pittsburgh comes out here and scores early and often, and this turned into a blowout kind of game. There is, I guess, the closest thing of value there would be the first period over. Even then, you're still laying 160. I trust that more than laying the team total here because Pittsburgh could just score 3 goals and roll away with the win here. So slight lean in the first period over 1.5 minus 160, but it's going to be a pass for me overall.
Yeah, and even that price is up there just a little bit too. First period over at about over 1.5 minus 160 here in this game. And you're just concerned to the Rangers score because we know scoring goals has been a problem for the New York Rangers lately. 1 goal against Ottawa, and then again, 2 goals last night, but a very fortunate second goal, banked it in off Bobrovsky with 6 seconds left. So they haven't been lighting it up offensively. So that's a tough one there, that game. New Jersey taking on Florida. Florida minus 210. The total 6 shaded to the over, minus 120. It's been a really good effort from Florida these last few games. I can understand why they're favored. I'm certainly not in the business, though, of laying minus 210 with them, but I understand why they're heavily favored here against the New Jersey Devils. I would think Florida wins this game, but this is another one of those games where it's a team, Florida, where this is not the price range I trust them in. They probably do show up and probably try to win this game, play hard. They have done that the last few games down the stretch of the regular season. Actually played largely pretty well, actually, this Panthers team. It's Roberto Luongo in net. I don't want to make too much of a big deal that this could be his last game. I actually am starting to think it probably won't be. Luongo's been adamant that he's probably planning on coming back one more season. He keeps saying, or at least I haven't made a decision yet. So you can't just jump to the conclusion that this is it for Bobby Lou, and this is the last ever game for Roberto Luongo in the NHL. We'll see, but it is Luongo in net. They've played hard for the guy at Florida. Maybe subconsciously they think, hey, maybe this is it for him. Whether it's confirmed or not, it hasn't mattered because they really have played hard. They played better actually defensively for Roberto Luongo in recent games. Actually, this is one of those games I'd lean under the total in, believe it or not. Florida's actually dug in a little bit harder defensively. They probably will tonight for Luongo. You can't trust the Devils to score goals in bunches. So maybe, if anything, lean under the total. But again, side or total in terms of official plays, I got nothing here on this game. Alex, anything with New Jersey and Florida?
Yeah, I'm going to go official with this game. We've been doing a whole lot of the Fat Joe lean back here with some of these other games, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the under 6 at plus 110 here. I think this is Roberto Luongo's last game, and I think he's purposely doing this because he doesn't want the big fanfare or ceremony or the different things. I think he's kind of giving us a poker bluff here. I think this will be his final game, but I think we may. I'd like to believe that we're bigger than we are sometimes, and think that we're the ones that tipped the hand of why this number is so damn high, because we were talking about, wow, this could be Luongo's last game, waiting for his last game of his career, and looking to bet on Florida. No way you can lay this kind of price with Florida here. The cheapest route you can go with this one, or even be regulation, you still would be laying around minus 140, minus 145. But I think the under here, I think we might see New Jersey try to play a little bit of defense for their last game. Mackenzie Blackwood has been the better of the 3 goalies that they ran throughout the year. And he's a guy that they're going to be trusting as the number 1 starter down the road next season and in the future. I can just see this kind of being a slow-paced game in a way, and a tighter defensive game. That's the way Florida's been playing as of late, kind of success, especially in front of Luongo. So I'm playing the under here at a plus price. I saw one 110, 115 around that price. So yeah, definitely one of the plus values of the day.
Well, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna give you better than that, Alex. I'm gonna give you under 6.5 because what I do is
Oh, all right, sweet.
when I post the picks, I always look at as long as there's a number available at one of the major offshore books, not
Right.
some rinky-dink D
Yeah.
minus book that they rate at SBR. It's got to be a decent book, and Heritage is a decent book. Heritage has it six
Yeah.
and a half. Heritage is a good book, yeah. They've got it 6.5, so that's what I'll mark it down as. New Jersey, Florida under 6.5, which is minus 115. A little more juice, but hey, you get the
All right,
six and
yeah.
a half over the six, you'll take it any day,
Yep.
for sure. New Jersey, Florida under 6.5, minus 115. For Alex B. Smith with that game. Chicago, Nashville. Next up, we should get a good thought or two from Alex on this with his Blackhawks wrapping up the season, as disappointing as it was to come up short of the playoffs for them. Nashville minus 240 at home, total 6 shaded to the over. This is tough for me too from a side perspective. Is Chicago going to show up? They poured so much into last night, home finale against Dallas, one going away. They wanted to give the fans something to be happy about at the end of the season. You're going to trust them on the road now, second night of back-to-back games. Cam Ward in net. I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't trust Chicago. But on the flip side, I'm no way in hell I'm laying this price with Nashville. That's just not happening. I don't like this team. I don't like the way they've been playing for weeks now. Nobody's made that clearer than me. I've said it ad nauseum. This is not one of the teams going into the playoffs with a boatload of momentum. They barely beat a bad Buffalo team. They barely beat Vancouver at home the other night and had to rally from a deficit to win that game. I know they can, and believe it or not, and that shows you how much Winnipeg has stumbled. And unfortunately, St. Louis has caught fire just a little bit too late, that Nashville is still in control to win the Central Division tonight. They unfortunately control their own destiny, even though you could probably say they're playing the worst of those three teams battling for first in the Central. Yeah, but it is very simple for the Nashville Predators. If they win in any fashion, shootout, regulation, overtime, doesn't matter. They will clinch the Central Division against the Blackhawks. I'm looking at the other scenario. If they get a point against Chicago and Winnipeg loses to Arizona and St. Louis loses to Vancouver, and they get a point against Chicago, they would also clinch, Nashville would, the Central Division. And they would also clinch, even if they lose to Chicago, they would clinch if both Winnipeg and St. Louis lose in regulation without getting a point. So it's a little complicated, but there you go. The bottom line is Nashville is coming to the ice thinking, let's win this game, because if we do, we're Central Division champs. And so motivation-wise, no way I could go against Nashville, but there's no way I'm laying the price with them in any form. I'm not even taking them regulation line. I don't trust their offense enough, even against Cam Ward, to go puck line on this team. Maybe this is the one goalie, and maybe Chicago's defense just doesn't have a great game tonight. Maybe doesn't bring their A game after last night going all out at home. Maybe that allows Nashville to get their offense on track tonight. Potentially, it wouldn't shock me if maybe this is a 5-1 Nashville win, but I got to see it before I believe it, and I've certainly got to see it before I bet it. So for me, nothing involved here in this game. Maybe a lean over the total, because I do believe Chicago with Ward and net is a dead nuts over. We saw that against St. Louis on Wednesday night when he started that game. Even after a slow start with the goals, they flooded in the third period. The goals started to fly, and that game ended up going over the total. So I would lean over in this game. That's probably the closest I am to making a wager, side or total, but nothing official. Alex, Chicago, Nashville, just in your pit of your stomach, what do you think Chicago brings to the table tonight?
It won't be as big of an effort as it was last night. And then, like you said, Cam Ward, he jumped into that game last night because Crawford got hurt, something with his groin or lower body. So it's going to be Ward rolling again here. My lean would be first period over. We're getting a decent price there at minus 135, minus 140. And we've seen that cash in two of the last three meetings. And in that one meeting where it went 1-0, I think each team drew like 3 posts. There was a goal called back to an offside. So that should have cashed as well. But overall, like I said, the motivation for Nashville is huge. All right, their rivals are coming in. The Predators. That's more of a fan rivalry than anything else. It's Predators fans that hate Hawks fans. It really doesn't have much to do on the ice, but it's translated. Obviously, they played in the playoffs a couple of years. Nashville sweeping the Hawks out. Hawks beating them 2 of the years they ended up winning Stanley Cup. So there's definitely some bad blood between the two. And so for them to clinch the Central Division at home against a rival, that's a huge motivational factor for Nashville. And I hope they, I obviously always want my Hawks to win as a fan, but I kind of hope that Nashville does win this game in a fashion of where they clinch at home. It's known, it's all taken care of, because I want to go against them in the series price against whoever they draw in that first round. Because, like you said, I think they're a fraud team in my opinion. So I want to see them win for betting purposes. I'd love to see the Hawks wrap up the season as a fan, but I'm not going to jump in with this price. I'm not laying 225. I'm not even going to be laying 160, 170 in regulation to find out about that. I'll be watching the game for sure, but not betting it.
It's a fascinating game because it's Nashville. We know they haven't played great, but still can obviously clinch the Central. Rumbling, bumbling, and stumbling, as Chris Berman would say, to winning the Central, but certainly still have the chance to do that if they take care of business tonight in Music City.
Also, Patrick Kane is the MVP. Oh, I had to throw that in.
Yeah, he's been amazing. He's had a tremendous season, no doubt. How about Jonathan Taves? Career high in goals too for him. Outstanding from
goals
him.
And points, and DeBrincat doing well, being the youngest Hawk to get 40+ goals this season. A lot of great individual efforts this year. Eric Gustafson getting 60 points.
Yeah,
a lot of great individual efforts. And like I said, Hawks fans shouldn't be disappointed at how things shook out, because really, when Q got fired, we all thought this was going to be, probably the worst team in hockey. We were thinking we might be getting a number one draft pick possibly. So to turn around the fact that we were even in the race and didn't get eliminated until, the final 5 days of the season. Hats off to Jeremy Collin for turning things around. I mean, he's not going to get a look at the Jack Adams Award or anything, but he did a solid job of taking what was a really bad situation and making it formidable and giving Hawks fans something to cheer about down the stretch.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they had a good, hard, solid run. I mean, and actually made a really good run at trying to get in the playoffs. You got to give them credit for that. Pride of some of those veterans that have been there definitely for a long time. Minnesota, Dallas. Dallas minus 145, minus 150. Total 5.5, pretty much across the board here in this game. If you saw the Minnesota Wild the other night against the Boston Bruins, woof. That's all I can say. Just absolutely dreadful, piss poor effort against a Boston team that was actually resting some guys too. On home ice, the game after getting knocked out of the playoffs to get shut out by the Bruins the other night. Dismal stuff. Another terrible home loss. I'm going to think Minnesota now goes on the road here for a meaningless finale with a disappointing season. At least this team's used to getting in the playoffs, at least. There's not even that this year. You think guys like Suter and Parise and Zucker and all these guys that have been there for a few years now on this Minnesota Wild team that have been used to at least getting to the playoffs going to show up on the road here tonight? I maybe they do, but I don't trust them to do that. This is like Buffalo to me with this Minnesota team. The other team on this card where I just flat out do not trust any sort of effort or intensity at all from them. I don't trust it from the Sabres, and I don't trust it here from the Minnesota Wild. Dallas, on the other hand, for them, they can actually fall down to the second wild card if they lose this game and Colorado wins. I mean, there's still a way Colorado can overtake Dallas for the first wild card spot. It's really positioning. Dallas is either going to get the first wild card in the West or fall down to the second wild card in the West, and Colorado moves up to the first wild card in the West. And really the difference is going to be, do you play Nashville or do you play Calgary? More than likely in the first round. That's what's going to determine the first and second wild card. So it's all about, does Dallas really care about whether they play Nashville or Calgary? I don't know, because Nashville's struggling, but they might not mind playing Calgary because Dallas has owned Calgary. You look at head-to-head, Dallas has done extremely well against the Calgary Flames. So they might say, hey, to hell with it. We'll take our shot here with the Flames. We've matched up well with them, done well against them head-to-head. Why not, take our chance and maybe play the Flames? But the bottom line is, regardless of what can and can't be done in terms of moving up for Dallas, this is their home finale. They lost last night. They look like they're going full bore. Ben didn't make the trip to Chicago. He's expected to be back in. They rested Ben Bishop last night. He is back in net, going to make the start for them tonight against Minnesota. I think Dallas is taking this game seriously with an emphasis on trying to win it. It's all I need. Give me Dallas here. Regulation, official play. Finally, you guys are worried, me, him, and Han, and lean back, as Alex said. Well, finally, we got an official play. This is my second one. We got Detroit earlier. We're on Dallas here in regulation against Minnesota. I don't see any kind of life whatsoever at all from the Minnesota Wild. That was pitiful the other night. I don't trust them to show up on the road here in Dallas at the end of a disappointing season. You can get Dallas in regulation right now at plus 100.
Oh, nice.
Really nice price, even money. Dallas in regulation plus 100. I like that one quite a bit. Second official play for me. Alex, anything for you with the Wild and the Stars?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go official with that. They're getting a plus price. I saw minus $1.10, $1.05. So Dallas, you forgot to mention the hashtag fade Staylock. Alex Staylock has lost 6 straight starts. It has been abysmal in most of those as well. So, you give him that on top of the fact that, like I said, the Wild, I mean, just the even more disappointing than usual year because, like I said, they're not even in the playoffs. I mean, I haven't heard the Wild mentioned in the news in about a week and a half. That also has to do with the Final Four being here, and I literally didn't get to watch any actual news because everybody's talking about the Final Four across town. But yeah, the Wild. I mean, it's just kind of a lost, forgotten season here. And playing against Dallas, and Dallas always gets fired up with Minnesota because once again another fan rivalry. Wild fans still can't let go of the whole North Star situation 25 years later. And Dallas, it's like they almost kind of pick and prod at them at times and always bring that up. So there's, we've seen them play once again playoffs. It's kind of like almost like I was saying about Chicago Nashville. It's like that kind of grown rivalry. And then once they played in the playoffs, Dallas completely crushed them. And it's all just Dallas has kind of owned them ever since. So I like the Stars here in regulation. I think we're going to see a complete flat spot, especially if the Stars get off scoring early. We're going to see the Wild probably mail this in the second period, definitely in the third period.
Yeah, that's a great point about Stalock. Forgot that. Yeah, he is in net. Dubnyk rested. There's no sense. He's played a lot. He's played a ton of hockey again for the Wild. Dubnyk. These games mean nothing. Put Stalock in there. The fact Stalock starting the final game of the season on the road too tells me I think they've all checked out. I think mentally they've all checked out. Bruce Boudreau's mentally checked out. This is an extreme disappointment for him because he's at least used to getting in the playoffs. It's success and winning in the playoffs in the past that has been Bruce Boudreau's problem. This year can't even get in the playoffs, so he's probably
the polar opposite of Justin Williams when it comes to Game 7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's probably in a completely disappointed state. There's going to be a lot. I think Bruce comes back next year, but I think there's going to be a lot of pressure next year for sure in terms of needing to get some results because it could be curtains for him in Minnesota if next year there's no turnaround with this Wild team. So
you mentioned a good point there too. That's something to look at next season when some of those books release odds for first coach fired. Boudreau's seat is hot already, so yeah. Yep. If he sticks around the summer, I think he gets the leash. If it'll go as far as wherever they are by Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. So yeah.
That's something to watch out for. Exactly. First coach fired. Yeah, he'd have to be the favorite. He'd have to be at the top of the list starting next season. I don't think there's much more places you can go unless Bugner comes back in Florida. But Bugner might not even come back after this season. So that's a good question mark here with the Florida Panthers. We'll see. Edmonton, Calgary next up. We've got Calgary minus 200, total 6.5, shaded to the under, minus 115. And the guy that's going to be most happy to have this game end tonight is going to be Ken Hitchcock because he can finally get back to retirement. I'm done with this nonsense that is the Edmonton Oilers, this complete and utter debacle of an organization. The only reason he took over on the interim basis, they reached out to him. He's an Edmonton native. He grew up, watching the Oilers. He did the hometown, did the native city a favor. But he doesn't want to be there long term, and this will be his final game to look for a permanent head coach after this game. And I'm sure Ken Hitchcock's glad it's over because it hasn't gone well. Another tough loss for Edmonton. Actually, a decent effort for their change from this team the other night against San Jose, but they still lost in the end by a score of 3-2, taking on Calgary. Now I've been fade Calgary these last couple of games. Didn't work out against LA. It did work out against Anaheim the other night, but I'm not in fade Calgary mode tonight. You got Johnny Gaudreau trying to get, I believe, 100 points in this game tonight. That's a milestone he wants. He's being very, very classy. No bragging. Just saying it's just another game for me. He wants 100 points. Don't get me wrong. He wants it. It's a milestone type of figure. He's got the chance to get that tonight. I probably will get it, knowing this Edmonton defense has been absolutely dreadful. And Mikko Koskinen in the net hasn't been all that much better. So Calgary at home off the loss to Anaheim, I don't get the sense they're going to be resting guys. It's their final game. You got to try to get guys ready now for this playoff run. I think Calgary brings it tonight. So I'm off Calgary fade train tonight. I think they do show up. I think they do play hard. I think they do take this game seriously. Plus, it's your provincial rival. I know they stink. I know they're totally in the rears of where you are right now in the NHL pecking order. But you still show up to play the Edmonton Oilers at home on Hockey Night in Canada. And I think they want to get a little momentum cohesion, chemistry, and a little rhythm in their game, Calgary, tonight, heading into that first round series that starts either Wednesday or Thursday later this week. So to me, it would be Calgary in some form. I'm not going to pull the trigger, but I'd lean Calgary probably in regulation, or if you're bold, lay the goal and a half, because Edmonton losing by margin has been a recurring theme lately, and maybe it happens again tonight. So I'd lean at Edmonton regulation or puck line, or Calgary, I should say, in regulation or puck line in some form. But just leans. I'm going to pass on this game, but wouldn't surprise me to see Calgary put a lot more of a concerted effort tonight than they did the last two games when they were resting some guys. Alex, anything with the Oilers and Flames?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that even when Calgary rest guys, they still play lights out. They've got a ton of depth and a ton of talent. They're going to be a tough team to battle in the playoffs. But we've seen them go 10-2-1 at home versus division opponents this year. Like I said, playing their provincial rival. The only way I would look here would be Calgary in regulation, laying minus 25, minus $1.30. But I'm going to pass it overall. Like I said, maybe Edmonton tries to get geared up a little bit. Maybe they play tough early and fade late here. So definitely don't want to jump in on this one. But like I said, yeah, it's going to be a weird game. And this was definitely one if you like the live bet. Maybe you want to watch this game in the first period and then try to find some value from there, because maybe Edmonton jumped out with a 1-0 lead after the first period, and then you can get some good value going back on Calgary.
Yeah, Edmonton may not completely roll over. It's their final game. It's Calgary, Hockey Night in Canada, and the effort was a little bit better against San Jose. I'll give them that. But even if they match Calgary effort-wise tonight, which is a question mark still, they're not going to match Calgary talent-wise. And a lot of people seeing what I see in terms of Calgary probably showing up tonight. This game opened, Alex, Calgary minus 160. It's up to minus 200 in some spots. So you're looking at a 40-cent move here on the Calgary Flames. So there's some people anticipating Calgary's going with a full lineup, taking this game seriously, and looking to win that final game, especially at home, before the playoffs begin. Next up on the card, we're down to, I believe, 3 games left on the slate. Winnipeg taking on Arizona. We've got Winnipeg minus 125 to minus 130, road favorites. The total 5.5. Shaded to the under at about minus 115 to minus 125, depending on where you look. This is a game you don't bet now, especially if you like Winnipeg, because you want to see what St. Louis do. How does the Chicago-Nashville game, which starts, I believe, 2 hours before this game does, because this is 10 p.m. Eastern. Chicago-Nashville's 8 p.m. Eastern. How do those games play out? It could make a big difference toward what Winnipeg, their emphasis, their excitement, their motivation, what lineup they Paul Maurice puts out on the ice. All of that could be determined by what the Blues and the Blackhawks do in their games previous to that, because we know Winnipeg needs to win, but also get some help in order to win the Central Division right now. When you look at them in the standings, they are currently tied with St. Louis. Both of them, of course, 1 point back of Nashville. But I believe, yes, regulation and overtime wins column, it does go to Winnipeg. 44, St. Louis 42 in that category. So Winnipeg gets the tiebreaker over St. Louis. So if they were to be tied in points with St. Louis, Winnipeg would get it. Winnipeg's only way really to win in the division is they got to get the 2 points. So Nashville doesn't get the 2. No, they'd actually win the tiebreaker too with Nashville, because they have 42 regulation and overtime wins as well. So they've got the ROW tiebreaker over both the Predators and Blues. So if Nashville gets no points, Winnipeg gets just 1 point against Arizona, Winnipeg would be divisional champions, Central Division champs. So again, I would wait still. This is one of those games that's perfect, especially the way the schedule lays out tonight. Wait until like 15, 20 minutes before the game starts. We'll know the St. Louis game by then. We'll have, I think, 2 periods into the Nashville-Chicago game, and then base your determination on whether Winnipeg goes for it tonight at that time. That's what I'm going to do. Arizona, we should give this team a ton of applause and credit for, battling for the playoffs as strong and as hard as they did. They got to game 81 with meaningful hockey. That's impressive for this team that many people thought was still a year away, one more long, painful rebuilding year, and yet they almost made the playoffs with injuries to boot. Antti Raanta has been out for most of the season. Multiple defensemen. Alex Galchenyuk was injured for a lot of the season as well up front. Derek Stepan's been in and out due to injuries. I mean, they've had a lot to deal with. Rick Tocchet, great job by him. to even have them sniffing the playoffs at this late in the season, falling just short. Calvin Pickard in net tonight. Not a total shock because Darcy Kemper's a guy that's played a shit ton of hockey. They've worn that poor guy into the ground. I think a well-deserved rest for him. He's played very well for this team, way better than I thought he'd play for this Arizona Coyotes team. Pickard in net tonight. Arizona is one of those teams, though. We saw it against Vegas, Alex, in the third period the other night. They knew they were out. They knew Colorado had clinched going into the third period against Vegas. They played a great third period. Pride, passion. Like, we want to show everybody what the Arizona Coyotes are all about. I'm not banking on Arizona mailing this thing in tonight. I think at home, you're going to see a decent effort from them. I've not known this team to quit. I've not known this team to pack it in. That's not, I don't think, the makeup of this team. So I think Arizona is going to end up, bringing a decent effort to this game. It's just a question of what's at stake for Winnipeg by the time this game has the opening puck drop. So for me, for now, it's a pass. Maybe on Twitter tonight, I'll have a late play on this based on the way things transpire by then. But for now, it's a pass for me with Jets and Coyotes. Alex, anything for you in the Zona Desert tonight?
Yeah, like I said, it's obviously gonna rely on what happens before, because it's a late start. With Blues starting in just under an hour. He said in all the other games they're shaking out in the early evening portion of the card. So Arizona, they're gonna play. I expect them to play a little hard at home. Obviously, you look at the last meeting here. That was a much different scenario. That was the Shane Doan retirement when the Jets came to town. Of course, they were beyond fired up for that game. It ended up being a 4-1 win. But like you said, Arizona, props to them for the season that they had, making this kind of run in the playoffs. This is definitely some big building blocks toward the future. And like I said, we've seen them. Like I said, the schedule makers, they kind of, it's weird how it shook out where they're a Pacific Division team, but they've been playing a lot of games against the Central, which is going to be their home division in a couple of years. So having these meaningful games and actually picking up wins against teams, knocking teams out of the playoffs that are going to be division rivals in a couple of years, so, kind of stirring that pot up a little bit potentially, because this Arizona team is going to get better, especially if they make the right moves in the offseason. So hats off to them. But yeah, like I said, I expect them to play kind of tough. Maybe look at Arizona first period. Possibly, and then like I said, once again, a game where live wagering comes into play. If everything's all settled in the Central by the second or third period, then maybe look to make a wager of some sort in that aspect.
All right, Colorado, San Jose. We've got San Jose minus 165. The total 6.5 shaded to the under at about minus 125. In this game, San Jose getting a win against Edmonton. Not pretty, but a win. This team pretty much will take wins against anybody right now. That's the bottom line with how much of a struggle it's been for them. It's Martin Jones for the Sharks in net. They've got to try to get him some confidence going into the playoffs. Semyon Varlamov for the Colorado Avalanche. It's not a surprise they're starting him. They've Philip Grubauer is a guy that they have been riding so much to help them get into the playoffs. It's at the point where you got to believe now that Philip Grubauer is going to be the guy in net for the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs. They wouldn't have said that about a month or two ago, but he's just played lights out to the point where Jared Bednar, I think, has to start him now in the playoffs coming up. Now, the one concern is we remember this is almost like last year for Philip Grubauer. He was lights out late in the season for Washington, helped them get in, and he couldn't stop a beach ball in his first couple playoff starts against Columbus, and it was a big reason the Jackets got off to that fast start in the series. Grubauer was not great. Holtby takes over, and Holtby doesn't look back, and he was tremendous the rest of that series. So Grubauer, though, does have that playoff experience now. He at least got a couple games in last year. It didn't go well with Washington. Maybe experience pays off for him now. That experience pays off for him this time around, starting for Colorado in the playoffs starting later this week. So it's Varlamov in tonight, San Jose, Martin Jones. San Jose's trying to get their defensive game in order, but Jones in net. It was Dell the other night against Edmonton, so they only gave up 2 goals, but that was not a Jones start. That was a Aaron Dell start. Jones is still strong. I'm going to take a shot, official play, third one for me, over the total in this game. Relaxed atmosphere. Colorado found the back of the net against Edmonton big time in their last game against Winnipeg. Their offense rallied to beat the Jets in that one, 3-2. I think they're going to be able to score. I gotta see it before I believe it from Martin Jones here in this final game. Again, San Jose's locked up everything, so I don't trust the guys in front of them to be blocking shots left and right with the playoffs at stake. You don't want to risk a block shot in the game 82 when you're locked into playing Vegas already. So I'm not sure, the defense is going to dig in as much in front of them. tonight in a meaningless game. And without that defense digging in, I don't know if I trust Martin Jones yet still to give me stops on a regular basis with what's been happening with him the last month or so. You got Varlamov, who hasn't played much. He played the one game earlier this week, but that's about it. I think San Jose can find the back of the net. So I'm going to go over 6.5 here in this game. Maybe a little bit of a loose atmosphere with the Avalanche taking on the Sharks. Alex, you got anything on this one?
Not much, really. I mean, you look at Varlamov's career numbers against San Jose: 5-5-3, with a goals against of exactly 3, the 919 save percentage. So, kind of leans to that over. Like I said, I haven't seen him play in a while, and yeah, it is kind of a conundrum that Colorado might have. Grubauer's obviously been the hot guy, but it's if they start him in game 1 and game 2, and he starts off a little flat like he did last year in that series. Like I said, we talked about it earlier, Columbus getting that 2-0 lead, and then they rolled with Holtby, and that's what kind of sparked everything off for Washington last season. Varlamov's not really a guy you can rely on in the playoffs either. His playoff numbers aren't that great, and the one decent year he had was all over a decade ago with Washington. So a little bit of irony in there with that. But yeah, as far as this game goes, like I said, it should be a relaxed atmosphere. It could be a lot of goals. We talked about it all season long with San Jose. They're a team that they're efficient with shooting the puck. They don't. They're not a freewheeling, fast up and down team like most of the teams. They're quite slow. If not one of the slower clubs in all the league, but when they get in the zone, they set up well. They take calculated shots. So if Varlamov is not on his A game, he can allow a few. So that's some good value here at that over 6.5.
All right, so over 6.5, just a lean for Alex though with that one. For me, Colorado, San Jose over 6.5 official play. We're down to our last game. Here it is. It's a massive card. This is our final game to break down on the Patreon NHL Ice Guys for the regular season. It's Vegas taking on Los Angeles. We've got Vegas minus 150. Road favorites total 5.5, shaded slightly to the over here at about minus 120. It is confirmed, as you would expect. Jack Campbell played last night for the LA Kings. It's Jonathan Quick getting the finale tonight at home against the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe that spurs him to play well, but I don't trust it. I mean, we saw him just get absolutely shelled by Calgary in his last start. It's a guy that's we've talked about it ad nauseum with Jonathan Quick, the injuries, the games played, tons of games, tons of taxes on the body, the physical pain, punishment he's taken, the unorthodox style that he has to, just stretch his bodies in so many different ways. It's just taken its toll on him. He's had multiple injuries, and he's an older guy now, and it's added up to him having a very tough and rough season. And it's sad to see because this guy was a Conn Smythe winner, one of the top goalies in the league a few years ago, but he's having a tough time. I can't back LA right now with him in net, even at home in their home finale, which is usually a bet on situation. LA probably wants to show up, get one win here at home before the end of the season. And it's not like Vegas is going to be a desperate team. I mean, they've been coasting for a while now, the Golden Knights. They lost at home the other night in their home finale against the Arizona Coyotes. I'm not in love with rushing to the betting window to back Vegas here either in this game. It's all about San Jose now. And that first round series that begins later this week. Gerard Gallant, usually he's a little tough on his team when they're losing. Even he said the other night, we're just taking it one game at a time. So even he understands the mental side of it right now. It's hard to get up for these games right now if you're the Golden Knights with the playoffs and San Jose on the horizon. So you got dubious motivational question marks for them, but I don't trust Quick and LA on the other side of it. So if anything, I'd lean slightly to LA at a home underdog price, but not something I'm going to get involved with here with Vegas and LA. Alex, you got any thoughts on this game?
It's interesting. You mentioned that with Jonathan Quick and all the different injuries in his career, 12-year career, 2 Stanley Cup rings, 2-time Jennings winner, Conn Smythe winner. Maybe this is his last game. That wouldn't shock me at all. It would make total sense to him to wrap that up. What's been an illustrious career. I mean, he just doesn't really have it anymore. He's not a guy who's going to go and maybe unless he wants to really work with this organization and work to develop Jack Campbell and would swap roles where Campbell will be the starter next year and he takes a backup role. If he doesn't want to do that, then I don't see him going anywhere else. And a change of scenery, I don't think is going to help him out much. Maybe he just hangs it up. So. You worry about that. Obviously, if that's the case, then wow, we might get a real A game effort from him. So you definitely don't want to fade LA in that spot. But like I said, I'm not willing to find out if that's the case or not because LA has just been dreadful all year long, and they've been dreadful with him in that. It's like I said, they've been playing a little harder in front of Campbell, it seems, than they have with Quick, the veteran. So it's a pass for me, but that's definitely something interesting to see. Down the road, maybe we hear a retirement announcement for Jonathan Quick. In the coming months, possibly.
Never know. Wouldn't put it past him. It's how badly do you want to keep hanging on and playing if you're Jonathan Quick, especially when you know your best days and your best moments in between the pipes are probably well behind you at this
And
time.
LA still got a way to go with their rebuild. It's not like they're going to turn around next year and be a cup contender. So,
yeah, does he want to hang around for a low and slow and painful rebuild? Let's be honest, in terms of farm systems and prospect systems, the cupboard is completely bare for the Los Angeles Kings. It's the Ontario AHL team. It's hard to find guys. Like, I love Carl Grundstrom, and he's going to actually be a pretty decent player for the LA Kings, but he's more of a third line guy, third line guy. They got him on a top line right now with the LA Kings. So that tells you all you need to know about how much they've struggled. He's going to be a decent player, but the prospect well is very, very dry. They got to just start drafting better. Period. End of story. They haven't drafted well enough. A lot of flops, a lot of draft picks and prospects over the years that have not panned out, especially in the Dean Lombardi era when he was the GM of this team. You just got to hope Rob Blake, now the GM of this Kings team, is going to have his scouting team in order. They do their job properly. They do their due diligence, and they draft at a much better, more competent level than they have in years past, because it's really put the Kings in a bind and in a tough spot behind the 8 ball from a depth of prospect standpoint compared to other teams in the NHL. All right, that's going to wrap up the show. That's going to wrap up our breakdown of the Saturday card. Before we call it our final show for the regular season, we do want to remind everybody there's no show tomorrow, day off, no games, obviously. We're back on Monday for our Patreon subscribers. Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern, with our Eastern Conference Stanley Cup playoff preview show. All four of us will be there for that. It looks like me, Alex, Andrew, and Jimmy's going to be there for Monday. He said he'd be joining us for that show. And also all four of us probably on Tuesday as well for the Western Conference Stanley Cup playoff preview show. So we're doing our playoff preview shows Monday and Tuesday for the Patreon subscribers. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. If you are watching this show as one of our free skate viewers, not a subscriber right now, very simple to become one. Go to patreon.com/Ice Guys. We will be doing a show every single day during the Stanley Cup playoffs. Every game from every series, we will break it down and we will analyze it from a betting perspective right here on the NHL Ice Guys. The preview shows on Monday and Tuesday, you're not going to want to miss that, because we're going to be talking series prices. We're going to be talking about, strategies and ways to bet the series and bet individual games in certain series. We'll be looking at futures in the Stanley Cup futures market that have value right now, some longer shots that might have some value to bet them now as the playoffs begin. Of course, just giving our overall thoughts on every series in depth. It's going to be great. The playoff preview shows, we're looking forward to it Monday, Tuesday with that. And then starting Wednesday, we do our regular shows where we break down each game every day throughout the playoffs starting on Wednesday. So join us for that. Again, just $10 a month. Believe me, for the content that we can provide on a daily basis, $10 a month. It's a very affordable rate. For all that you get here with our shows. We post the picks that we make on each show every single day on the Patreon page as well, including tracking all records so far. So make sure you get on board for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Patreon.com/Ice Guys. That's Patreon.com/Ice Guys. We'll be here throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs until a champion is crowned in June. All right, so let's recap Alex's Saturday card. He's got 3 plays on tap. He has Detroit -120 against Buffalo, New Jersey, Florida under 6.5 -115, and Dallas in regulation +100 against Minnesota. Any of those a best bet?
Yeah, we'll go Dallas regulation as a best bet play for 2 units.
All right, 2 units on the Dallas in regulation. I do indeed like that one. That's a pretty solid bet, in my opinion. For me, I've got 4 plays. I've decided last second I'm going to go ahead and take a shot with the big dog, Ottawa, +170 against Columbus. Regardless of how the lineup information shakes out, I think it's still going to be tough, after the joy and the happiness I saw from that Jackets team, including Tortorella clinching last night. Even if there is something to play for here and moving up, leapfrogging Carolina, may not get a great effort, as great an effort tonight. And Ottawa, I think, is going to show up, be tough at home. So Ottawa +170. I'm also on Detroit -120 against Buffalo, Dallas in regulation, plus 100 against Minnesota, and Colorado, San Jose, over 6.5, plus 105. I'll make Detroit a best bet, minus 115 to minus 120 in that range. I think they take care of the Buffalo Sabres. All right, that's going to wrap up the show. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the free skate edition of the Patreon NHL Ice Guys. We're going to do another free show in May for sure. Once we're probably into the second round of the playoffs, we'll do another free skate, free for all, open to the public edition of the show during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So join us for that. But if you want to make sure you don't miss a single show that we do throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, go to patreon.com/Ice Guys. It's $10 a month. It is the best damn NHL hockey betting content on a daily basis anywhere, what we give you here on the Patreon NHL Ice Guys. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy your Saturday. Good luck with your wagers tonight. It's been a great regular season, and we're looking forward to the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll see you again on Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, with our first of 2 Stanley Cup playoff preview shows. Until then, enjoy the games and good luck. See you on Monday.